You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Happy Halloween! Red like hell. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
And
Keith Cheatham.
That's right. We're coming to you live. Back on our normal night here on the Red Moon Podcast. Oh, it feels good to be back on Tuesday.
For like a week.
Yeah. Because that was going to be my next announcement. So it just so happens that, it's only this week that we're back on Tuesday. Next week we are mixing it up yet again just because, hey, we were 2 out of 3 events with regards to all the presidential election things.
It's like really screwing us up.
We basically hit
it's not
both.
Even that important. I don't understand.
Even when
Nobody
we move
cares.
the show
Who
to a
cares?
different night, we land on
debate. So
yeah.
it's like we're finally taking a little bit of we're finally taking a look at our schedules and realizing what we're coming up against next week. So we're not going to dare try to compete with the election of who will be the president of the United States, whether you're tired of it or not. And even if you say, "Oh, I don't care," and I just want to get away from it all, I'm tired of politics.
Yeah.
You know you're going to be watching.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be staying up late to make sure
Everybody's
that
got
the country stays great,
Ooh.
or that it turns a different direction. Who knows? Who knows?
You bummed me out right there. I just want to see Wolf Blitzer's face one more time.
I don't know. My favorite still is which it goes all the way back to the Obama era with Chris Matthews, and he's like, I just feel a tingle up my leg.
Is that?
He said it. Oh yeah, he did. But no. So what we're gonna do next week? We're still gonna have a show.
Yeah.
However, we're working out some scheduling conflicts, so we will make a post about it later this week. But we will either have the show on Wednesday or Thursday next week.
Right.
We have to finalize some details, but Wednesday or Thursday next week, we're switching it up one more time.
Hopefully we'll know by that time this week.
Yes.
By Wednesday or Thursday this week.
We should. And the hope is that, trust me, I know the holidays are coming, but we should not have any more switches in the near future. I know it's been a rocky roller coaster of a ride, but we should not have any switches until at least maybe December.
Yeah, in December we've got a special show.
Oh, we do. We absolutely do. I don't know if y'all can tell. Look at the TV. What does that say?
293.
293. That's right, guys. We're pushing it. We're getting closer and closer to episode 300. We got some changes coming. Hopefully. I know I'm promising. I can't. I got to stop promising.
We can't
this.
promise things yet.
Yeah, I can't do
We got
that.
a hot nut challenge coming too.
I was like, I don't know what he's going to say.
I
We
mean,
do.
There's no telling.
We've done the Carolina Reaper,
We have.
and now we have the Death Nut Challenge
nut.
coming.
I thought it was the hot nut.
No,
The
Death
hot
I
Nut.
almost said the ghost nut, but then that would be really bad.
I'll do the
I
ghost.
don't know. Hot
I'll
nut
do the
sounds
go-
worse than ghost nut.
The death nut. There's
I'll do
nothing
the
worse
Ghost
than
Nut
that.
Challenge.
The ghost nut?
Yeah.
Ghost nut.
It's like invisible.
Yeah, you don't have
I
to
can
really
do
eat
that,
it.
yeah.
Get that invisible nut.
Well, Keith, you also got the Packy.
Pocky chip.
Pocky chip.
The one chip challenge.
The one, we were going to try this a lot, which this is an old challenge.
Yeah.
But, I mean, why not? We're already
Well, I
doing
mean,
the
they
Death
released-
Nut
they
Carolina
They
Reaper.
redo it
It's
every
like-
year, so this is the 2020 version. So
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
so
Well, then we
I
know it's going to be hell.
I thought
Yeah.
like it was 2012. It was just left over.
No,
and
they
we got it on sale.
they release them every
It's all
so often.
stale.
Yeah.
You
They,
bite into it, it doesn't crunch.
yeah. But no, they don't. Like you can't really find like. That's why they're so expensive, is because they do a limited releases like each year, and
Yeah.
then whatever they have left over gets sold on eBay. But I mean, they do. It's not like you're buying them from like 5-6 years ago. They just do limited releases.
Well, I
each
never
year.
thought you were. I thought they were just always making them.
No,
I just
no,
thought it
they
was always
don't.
the same. I didn't think they were actually changing up like the
they
ingredients.
get hotter
or-
every year or something.
Well, I don't know. I know the Death Nut did, like, because it used to be the hottest challenge, then the one chip challenge came along, and now it is the hottest challenge again because they did redo their recipe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
so-
they're always competing
Yeah.
to who they can give ulcers to and heart attacks.
Yeah.
If they can force
Gotta
you to
kill
have a heart
people.
attack,
Yeah.
then they know they're on the right
Well,
track.
it
It's
tells
like, I already
you more or
have an
less.
ulcer, so that's
It does warn you that
he's
like,
gonna
you
have a
know,
heart attack.
Yeah.
this year.
We just need more milk.
It
another
does
gallon.
have warnings all over it about if certain
Your
symptoms
health.
last, certain to seek medical help. So
Oh,
know.
God.
Yeah.
Well, we already knew that. We knew that from the Reaper.
Wow.
I mean, when I still
We
my
don't fear
favorite
the Reaper
quote.
no more.
Favorite quote of that whole entire Reaper challenge is when you, Sean, were just like, "Why did God make that?" And Keith turns and says, "No, we crossbred those."
He goes, "We did that."
We just
He did.
He did.
we did.
Yeah. Because man can't, they can't leave things alone.
No, and we exactly Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Fair reminder.
Too busy figuring out whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think whether or not they should.
And that's exactly what we do here every week on the Red Moon Podcast.
It's always a good show when you can quote
Yes.
When
Jeff
we-
Goldblum.
Yeah.
well, and when you can actually talk about what we talk about every single week, which is movies.
Speaking of movies,
yeah, we got
it's,
movies.
It's the Halloween show. This week is Halloween.
Happy Halloween, everybody!
Yeah. And, we hope you can stay home, eat your chili, munch on some candy. But what are you going to watch? I mean, it's Halloween. You got to watch something good.
I think I'm gonna watch.
Well, we have
It's
two.
the Great Pumpkin,
two-
Charlie Brown, and I'm gonna tune into
I'm
ABC.
going to watch it. But it's not going to be on Apple TV Plus. I refuse. I'm going to pop my Blu-ray in. I have it
Oh,
in.
he's got it on Blu-ray.
I have it
got
on 4K.
Wow.
Yes,
Committed.
because that's how much I love the Peanuts.
Wow.
And it looks beautiful. The grain, it's just I love it.
Oh,
That's just
man.
how it's
I
supposed to
thought
look.
it doesn't look like the Disney Channel remakes with like the beautiful vibrant.
Oh, where
colors.
they
I mean, they
smooth-
completely smooth it over. Yeah.
It's vibrant, but they didn't they didn't smooth everything out. Like you
Okay.
still have
Oh,
some
cool.
grain, which I like.
Yeah.
because like it looks natural. Like they didn't, But I digress. We do have two movies to review.
Yes.
Both of them could be watched for Halloween. One of them I would recommend. The other maybe not. So let's hop to it, Brandon.
Here's our review of The Witches.
While there are many icons in the world of children's literature, few have scared the psyches of children as well as Roald Dahl. With multiple film adaptations made from Dahl's most loved works such as Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Matilda, The BFG, and James and the Giant Peach, children for generations have been captivated by Dahl's stories on the page and the screen. And while all of Dahl's works offer cautionary tales and morbid humor, none have managed to terrify a generation as well as the 1990 film adaptation of The Witches. Beloved by a generation of kids also left scarred by it, The Witches, like all successful works that leave a mark on pop culture, has now received a remake. Directed by Robert Zemeckis, a filmmaker no less prolific than Dahl, 2020's The Witches stars Anne Hathaway as the Grand High Witch, with Octavia Spencer filling the role of the main hero's grandmother. Newcomer Jazir Bruno takes on the role of the protagonist, known as Luke in the original, but left nameless in the modern adaptation, adhering to the original novel itself, with the story narrated by Chris Rock portraying an older protagonist. Much like the novel and the original film, the new version of The Witches sees the main character taken in by his grandmother after the tragic death of his parents. The hero's grandmother soon teaches him all about witches, terrible creatures that wear wigs that give them wig rash and have no toes. Worst amongst all the witches in the world is their leader, the Grand High Witch. When the hero and his grandmother find themselves staying in the same hotel as the Grand High Witch and a convention of witches from across the nation, hijinks ensue as the lead finds himself turned into a mouse and set against the Grand High Witch herself. The remake of The Witches is mostly the same tale as its predecessors, and the book they are both based on. Key plot points and details remain the same, but the setting and character backgrounds differ. These changes, however, do not take away from the story, but add something different to set the two adaptations apart. The biggest changes to the story involve adding a third character to tag along with the lead and Bruno in the form of Daisy, voiced by Kristen Chenoweth, and the film's ending, which sticks closer to the book's ending than the original film. The movie's narrative structure is well crafted, with solid writing making strides to flesh out the story more than the original. And while this is a terrific idea, too often I felt the added material fell flat in tone and ended up adding little. While the original was criticized for how scary it was for children, the new one should have no such critique, as it often plays scenes too safe, coming off as hokey rather than scary. This is not aided by the terrible CGI. While the 1990s The Witch's practical effects don't always hold up, most of it does, and it is still better than the overly animated mice and cartoonish CGI of the remake. While the original was campy and has its share of bad moments, it has much more heart and uses clever acting and dialogue to put its camp to good use, creating memorable comedic moments. This is most obvious in Angelica Houston's portrayal of the Grand High Witch. In the remake, Anne Hathaway channels all of the camp, but none of the charm or wit. Ultimately, you get a remake that is split down the middle, with very solid additions but very lackluster reimaginings. Mostly though, I just found it lacking in the charm I love so much from the 90s version. I give 2020's The Witches a 2 out of 4 stars.
Ooh, 2 out of 4. What some were probably hoping for better
I
for
didn't
this
care for it.
classic, this retake on a classic.
I think kids might like it, but I don't find
Mine
a
didn't.
lot of adults will.
You didn't, Sean?
My son didn't like it.
Oh, really?
Oh,
No.
wow. Well, and it
Just
was
watched
funny
it and
because
he didn't like it.
I did watch both.
Yeah.
I watched the original because I needed to have a fair
Well,
comparison.
you'd never seen it before.
Yeah.
I'd never seen it before.
Well, I watched both. I mean, I'd seen the original before.
but
I
you
watched,
just
we watched-
to
yeah,
kind
I
of
watched them
rehash. Well, and it was interesting because I started to watch the original when Sean, I believe, I texted you all, and you said that your kids were just sitting down to watch the new one.
both. Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting, but at the same time, I finished the original, and I was like, all right, that's kind of cute, for a kids movie, and I immediately thought, okay, this has definitely got to be a nostalgia trip. This has got to be something that I feel like you all probably have a fonder memory of than me, obviously having just seen it.
Yeah.
And it being like, it has a 97 on Rotten Tomatoes,
Mm-hmm.
but
Which I agree. That's a little high.
a little high.
Yeah.
Maybe more than a little.
But it was funny because I'm sitting here and I'm like, I saw that just from hit and play on Plex, and I'm just sitting here thinking, well, this is going to be fantastic. And I was a little let down because it was not quite that good. And then I immediately was like, is this just one of those films that, it is an iconic, classic for people who have that nostalgia trip with it, and having seen it when they were
what
little?
Hocus Pocus is to Jacob.
No.
Jacob does not care for
No,
Hocus Pocus.
no, because I don't loathe it like Jacob loathes Hocus Pocus. I don't loathe this movie like that. I
Love
enjoyed
Hocus
it.
Pocus.
Yeah, and absolutely, I love Hocus.
But I think, but I would agree though. I like Hocus Pocus because I saw it when I was a kid, and I have fond memories of that. Just like this movie, the original terrified me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I loved it. It was that scary, the good scary. Like it scared me, but I wanted to keep watching it.
Mm-hmm.
And so seeing the original again later is just like with the Dark Crystal reboot. It's kind of like seeing something that I remember and picking things out that I didn't remember and noticing now. So I can understand the nostalgia part. If you never saw it until this week,
Right.
then yeah, seeing it as a kid's a different experience.
And it's weird because it's like, yeah, that definitely would have helped. But even still, I feel like parents, and because my parents were the ones who let me watch Hocus Pocus.
Yeah.
But I think they thought too it was like a cute movie.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
it
can
is-
I
it
can
is
watch
a
it
family film, so-
right? And I can watch it now and at least like I know Jacob knocks it, but you can watch that film and it's coherent from start to finish. And this one is too.
Yeah.
But I just feel like it tells a better overall story. There's a reason why it has
Oh, yeah.
the
No.
iconic fame that
Yeah.
it does.
There's some
There's-
weird stuff in The Witches. Like
Yes.
some
Well-
of the, especially at the beginning, like
Yes.
some of it's very dark and twisted and weird.
Well, and I don't
But-
think the dark and twisted nature is what detracts it. I just feel like the narrative structure, I think, is partially part of it too, is because it does take a while to build the original. Like that's one thing the new one did differently was change the structure and how she tells the story of the witches to her grandson, and the events happen in a different sequence, whereas the original kind of follows the book and the way its story unfolds,
Yeah.
which is fine when you're reading all this information, but when you're front loaded in the original film with all this information and you don't get to any of the action till half hour into the film, I think that's why it doesn't maybe
kind of connect with the people as much, because Hocus Pocus, I mean, the action starts from the very beginning. I mean, you start with them having that little girl and trying to suck her soul out. So, I mean,
which in itself, I would say is just on the same level of as dark as the story you hear at the beginning of this film about the witches. But, and I will say, this is definitely there were parts in the original versus the remake that I thought, wow, this is definitely a darker tone.
Yeah.
And for that, I actually liked it. I ended up settling in the middle on both of these films. I gave them both 2.5 stars. However, I slightly gave the nod to the remake. I know. And that's what I want to divulge.
We're
now.
going to get into it.
So let's go ahead and talk about that right now. About, you all, obviously, I'm looking at you too, Sean, because you did not like it.
I didn't give it 2.
What did you give it?
I gave it 1.5.
Wow. So you really did.
Yeah, I
You
did not
loathed
like it.
this film.
No, I didn't loathe it, but I just didn't think it was a good film. It's not like I hate it. It's just I
Wasn't
just
not worth
didn't think
watching
it-
again.
No, not to me. No.
Okay, Keith, what about you? I mean, obviously we heard
Oh,
your
I'm
opinions in the review.
never going to watch it again. But I think here's the thing. I can't say never. Like, I mean,
I won't
if,
either.
If my nieces,
I'll say that.
If my nieces were to be watching it, like, and it was on, like, I mean,
I'll
it would be on. I'm
yeah,
not going to
you'll
like.
just go take a crap in the other room while.
Yeah, like
it.
it would just be background.
crap.
It would just be background noise to me.
Yeah.
I would much prefer to watch the original, and I mean that's because one, the original was scarier. The special effects were better. They definitely toned down the how frightening the film was in the remake. And I mean that's fine if they feel like that's just too scary and kids can't handle it. But we saw it as kids and we're just fine.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's something that was so scary kids can't handle it. But it was like just the right amount of scary for kids.
Yeah.
And I mean even watching it as an adult, like when I rewatched it this past weekend, I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot how
when
like
they first take their faces off and their wigs and stuff, I was just like, this is gross.
Yeah.
Well, and even
Like,
the
I
whole
didn't even remember it
story
being
about
that gross.
Erica at the beginning, and like the fact that they
painting
and she being
like,
trapped
just
in the
appearing.
painting.
Yeah.
Creepy.
Like I the way I thought about it, and it really honestly, it's like I do with a lot of older films I watch in this style, is I immediately think, we've gone too soft.
Yeah.
And like, look, I'm not saying we have to have Die Hard for children.
In the new one, the girl that was turned into a chicken, the family should have ate the chicken.
Yeah.
That would have been
That would have been
that
That
would have been good.
equal to the first one.
Agreed.
To have them sitting there eating their daughter and not knowing it.
Yep.
That would have been
but
dark and
instead they
twisted.
have her go up to the cage and like, oh yeah, I went and visited her every day, and I'm like, no. That, it didn't have the same type of dire situation.
Yep.
Like, and it's weird because the new one floated in between that weird. There were moments where I felt the threat. What I loved about the new one the most was I had a stronger connection to the kid. And I felt like the way they opened it without having gone into how witches rule the world or come to be and where they're at in society, they literally just start with him.
A tragedy.
Yeah. He loses his parents, but he's salvaged, and like his grandma comes in and saves him, and she's trying to cheer him up. And I thought the first half of the movie that kind of leads you into like understanding his backstory and building a relationship between him and his grandma was way, 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 way better than I'm going to tell you this story about witches. Your parents are going to go to an event. They die. So literally the last two things you remember are your parents are dead and this terrible story about witches. Like, it's just it's freaking awful.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
And that's the only one up I will give the new version is that the original kid in the original version was a horrible actor.
Yes.
He was fine when he was turned into a mouse, and
his
the
voice acting was fine.
Yeah, the voice acting was fine. He did great there. But when it was him in like the live action scenes, it was like that kid was.
But
he was terrible.
That kid's been in other films that I've seen. One of my favorite films from back in the 90s is called Parenthood. And they actually made a TV show about it in the early 2000s based on it. But it was Steve Martin and Rick Moranis and a bunch. Well, he's Steve Martin's son, and he's kind of like an emotional wreck of a kid. And he's a terrible freaking actor in that movie, too.
I was going to say.
You want him to just
We all know
get trapped under the lawnmower or
the
something.
child actors started to shift and change in 99 with Haley Joel Osment. and The Sixth Sense.
What about Corey freaking Feldman, man?
Corey
Okay,
Feldman.
Sean Astin.
okay.
Sean
Wait.
Astin. There were plenty of
wait,
good child
wait.
actors before Haley
There were
Joel
few and
Osment.
far in between.
River Phoenix,
But
bruh.
okay, River Phoenix, I'll give you. I'll give you all of those. Here's the difference.
Macaulay Culkin, Elijah Wood.
No, Macaulay Culkin is not a good actor.
Have you
If
seen
you watch
the,
Home Alone, he is not a good
Have you seen
actor.
The Good Son?
The Good freaking Son with both of them in it.
Elijah
Here's the
Wood
thing.
and Macaulay Culkin.
Here's the thing.
Gosh.
If you look
Messed
at
up
child
movie.
actors now, they cannot be misses. Back then, you could have a movie still be successful with a child star having a miss. If you had a child star that was a Sean Astin in Goonies, or all of those freaking kids, or Stand By Me, then you just had a freaking great
Stand By Me
movie.
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
didn't, if any of them sucked, it would be a forgettable film.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
I got it.
That's
I get it.
all I'm saying.
I can agree with you on that. I'm just saying that there were good child actors.
There
before.
were, yes, there were, and y'all just named
Just
a
not in
crap
this movie.
ton. Definitely
not in these movies.
Not in any of these. But yeah, and I want to go back to the special effects because I did say that's
God
like,
awful.
Because like I said, this movie, the main kid better than the O kid. Special effects, you would think 2020. We have CGI. I mean, we've seen Endgame, we've seen Lord of the Rings,
Nope.
we've seen all these films, and we get the worst looking
This
mice
is
I have
seriously-
ever
yeah.
seen.
This is
All
circa.
their freaking the main witch's toe.
Yeah.
The long toe. Looked,
Yeah.
It's
Those
like
are
this is so
stupid.
well,
terrible.
even the mouth. Even the mouth.
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
it-
that
I thought that was going to be a cool
terrible.
kind of nuance other than ripping
Well,
off their
The
face.
scene where she's like stretching her arms out and they're contorting,
Awful.
I was
Oh,
like,
that
that
was
looked terrible.
terrible.
Yeah, and
looked
it's
fake.
like, and yes, some of the effects in the original don't hold up, but they were practical, and most of them still look really good.
Yeah.
When they peel their faces off, that
Yes.
still looks
It's
amazing.
terrifying.
Yeah.
It's freaking terrifying.
scratching
when
their
even when
sores on their
she
head.
puts her
Ugh.
face on when somebody walks in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like the transition they have between her having the face off and put on. I'm like, that was amazing.
But even
Yeah.
the puppeteering for the mice, I thought was better, and I would rather watch that than these terrible CGI mice because they just
and
look so cartoonish.
this is a problem with Zemeckis. I'm sorry, but all of his CGI
Yes.
is like barring Forrest Gump, which maybe because it was just like breakthrough technology at the time,
Yeah.
and it was like we got to get this right and make it feel realistic. Now it's like anytime he has any CG. I mean, look at freaking Beowulf, or
Yeah.
all of the.
Well, to say, it's like he's trying
when
to
he
do
just
Polar
goes
Express or
all the
Beowulf.
way.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm like, he goes all in on just making it completely over the top, and it just looks. The cat looked awful in the rain.
Oh yeah.
It looked like circa 2005. It really did. It was
really bad.
god awful.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, there was not enough to bring me back to this movie. But as far as comparing it to the original, that was the only thing that I didn't mind the subtle changes in the story that they made. I thought they were still very faithful to the original, as well as making subtle changes that made sense and were at least. I thought that the ending was a little too happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
But I did like the fact that, for instance, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the 90s film or this current one,
Well, the current one follows the novel
a little
more-
bit closer.
more directly,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, then I'll just say that. I do like the fact that it sticks with, I guess, the material without spoiling it. I don't mind the ending. I just thought the ending was a little too, again, campy. And yeah, it was like, okay, this is supposed to be somewhat a scary film for
Well,
kids.
the only other thing I really want to point out about the new one is that this story really hinges around the character of the Grand High Witch, and Angelica Houston was terrific in the original.
Agreed.
Whereas I felt like Anne Hathaway was just she was goofy and campy, but she didn't have any of like the charm or any of the humor. It was like you're watching this and it's like, this isn't funny. She's just silly, and like it's like she doesn't really know what to do except for put on this goofy accent and act silly.
Angelica Houston, even when she's not even talking, she looks intimidating.
Oh
Yes.
Very intimidating
Yep.
person. And so I feel like even when she's just staring at people in the original movie,
Yes.
you can feel that she is like, I mean, she's working them over. Like, I mean, I just, like you said, I couldn't take Anne Hathaway seriously. And I just never felt like she was a threat to anybody.
Agreed. Well, and I think that just kind of stands as a whole with the whole film, because to me that's kind of the problem with them going more lighthearted than with the original. The original is much scarier because of some of those scenes and because of the way the film is set up. And I definitely wish the substance of the first film was more so involved in this film, but some of the tactics they used in executing some of the scenes and some of the backstory in the new film I thought paid off better for a better story overall. But that's why I settled in the middle, 2.5, with a slight edge to the new one. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me on that.
I think we should talk about something that's actually scary.
And that we all agree with?
Yeah.
Why don't we introduce that way, Keith? What one could that be?
I've actually looked forward to reviewing this one. We choose a very iconic horror film every Halloween, and with this being the Hitchcock theme year, there's really only one we could choose, and that is Psycho.
It's here, creeping upon us like the ever-looming sense of dread, just around the corner. Unseen, but there all the same. That's right, Halloween is this weekend, and to celebrate, we dive into Hitchcock's most prolific horror film, in one of the most, if not the most iconic films made by the master of suspense, Psycho. Almost everyone knows the story of Norman Bates, played by Anthony Perkins, the man tormented by his mother, a figure never seen but always heard driving Norman further down into his descent. When Marion Crane, portrayed by Janet Leigh, stops at the Bates Motel, ran by Norman, during a thunderstorm with a case of stolen money, Norman is chastised by his mother for inviting Marion to dinner. Marion soon encounters Mrs. Bates' wrath herself in one of the most iconic scenes in Hitchcock and film history. After having been missing for over a week, Marion's boyfriend Sam, portrayed by John Gavin, and sister Lila, played by Vera Miles, go looking for her only to come across the Bates Motel themselves. What they encounter and the truth behind Norman's mother has left audiences horrified for years. Psycho truly is a masterful horror film and one of Hitchcock's finest. While Hitchcock rarely ventured into outright horror, Psycho was one of the rare exceptions that resulted in the perfect blend of suspense and terror. The iconic shower scene changed film history, scaring viewers while also pulling off clever filming techniques and becoming the cornerstone that slasher films would evolve from. Psycho, however, despite inspiring the slasher genre, is much more than a slasher flick. Outside of this one scene, the film relies on tension and suspense, with a revelation that is horrifying because of its implications and disturbing nature, not because of blood and gore. Psycho scares not because of a high body count or violence, but because it's a story that could very well happen. Add in a story that expertly subverts viewer expectations, again on display in the famous shower scene, and Psycho leaves you on edge. Hitchcock's brilliantly crafted narrative, with a shockingly clever twist built upon the suspense and tension of the unknown, create a film that plays to all of Hitchcock's strengths, and gives us an iconic horror film that has seen sequels, remakes, and even a television prequel. There's a reason Psycho has become so ingrained in our pop culture and remained an iconic horror film. I give Psycho 4 out of 4 stars.
Now that's more like it. 4 out of 4 stars.
I do.
For Psycho.
I'm fond of Psycho.
I honestly, I would argue with anybody who's not. Because them's fighting words if you ain't.
Them's
Them
fighting words.
Them's fighting words.
Just Anthony Perkins as Norman is just, he's just that perfect level of like unassuming, like you just think like, oh, this is just this strange average Joe, but then he would have those creepy mannerisms.
Yes.
And then when you'd see him like not around other people, but like hearing him argue with his mother, and you're just like, you know something's not right here. You can't figure out what, but you know that something about Norman is off.
Yeah. No doubt. And that is part of the charm, is like just himself throughout the whole movie. I mean, that one line that always gets me is just, a man's best friend is his mother. And it's just like
how he says it.
Yeah, the way he says it is so it borders on the line of like, okay, yeah, psychotic, but also just very heartwarming and touching for someone who loves their mother dearly.
Yeah.
And him just teetering on that throughout the entirety of the film is what makes this just so scary. And it is an iconic, like you said, classic Hitchcock film, but absolutely a great one to end our Halloween Hitchcock season on, because I can't think of any other film that iconically speaks of Hitchcock and the horror genre so well.
Yeah. And I say it might be his most prolific. It's definitely one that I think everybody knows. The only other, I think, Hitchcock movie that I feel like is as well known as Psycho might be North by Northwest, but of course that's not a horror film.
Right.
Psycho definitely is, and more so than even other films that people kind of try to shoehorn
into the horror genre from Hitchcock, kind of like Dial M for Murder.
Yeah. Or
The
that's
Birds.
not really.
It's
Yeah,
not
or The
really
Birds.
horror, but I mean
Suspenseful.
that is
Yeah.
one of his most like well-known films, as everybody knows he did The Birds. But
Yeah.
this is like I like how you said it. I was getting ready to I was thinking it in my mind, and then I heard your review because I hadn't heard it before just now. But it's the beginning of slasher films, and there really wasn't anything on film like the shower scene.
Yeah.
I mean, it was terrifying to people to see someone be murdered like on camera, and it was one of the. It's not the first, but I remember reading that it was one of the first films that used the blood the way that it did.
Well,
like that
I know.
used-
Well, the thing was too is what was so controversial about it was that they couldn't show her in the shower
No,
Yeah.
right,
itself. So the way they shot it,
Yes.
in all the different angles, were not only it made it. It's exactly why what I love about like when M. Night Shyamalan talks about how he thinks of horror as not seeing the killer with the bloody knife,
Right.
And that's exactly, you see a silhouette, you don't see a face,
you just
don't
see
even
the-
see, and you don't even see the actual
and the
stabbing.
music.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's
Well,
terrifying.
and now I do remember from the movie in which Anthony Hopkins plays Hitchcock. Not a great film.
Yeah.
But there is they explain this, and it is historical that his wife is the one who convinced him to add music to the scene.
Yeah.
To ratchet up the
okay.
fear.
It's actually, and I know this is a not significant in terms of the movie itself, but it's a fun fact. But it's actually, you mentioned like the first scene like of a murder on camera like that, but it's being in the bathroom, a shower
Yes.
scene. It's the first film to ever show a toilet on camera because
Oh.
they didn't. It was actually something that a lot of the restriction, like one of the restrictions, they didn't want people
I
to
forget
see
what
toilets.
they're called. The codes.
It was before the MPAA, yeah.
Yeah,
but
which
they
is
didn't
why
show
even though I
toilets,
put rated R on there, obviously it's like that's a more modern rating.
you
It
couldn't
wouldn't have
show
really been
somebody
rated.
going to the bathroom because that's just naughty.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so
Well,
the,
and
so
that-
because
and
there's
you
never a need to actually until this time when he's showing a murder in the bathroom.
Right.
So it's the first film to ever have a toilet.
Well, and that's the
on
thing.
camera.
You think about the birds. You think about it's like even just seeing like when they show the scene of the guy with the eyes poked out, and I'm like, it's funny because it's like I see Hitchcock being the controversial director of his day, like we have some today. The difference is I feel like when you watch his films, some of the shock and awe is a little bit more warranted for the story, which just shows how far we've come.
Well, he was controversial in as far as actually revolutionizing things. Some people
Yes.
today are just being controversial for the sake of being
for the
controversial.
factor of
they
shock and awe.
want
It's
shock,
not
yeah.
accomplishing anything other than they're trying to be as shocking as possible.
Yeah. And so I think that's one of the more brilliant ways of which I think it shows you that even some of the restrictions, though, back then helped him think outside the box when it came to shooting scenes like this. Or, for instance, when it comes to the small budget, horror flicks like Halloween, when you have something where it's like, okay, we can't be menacing with all these huge special explosions and special effects, but rather it's that slow killer with a knife
But it's
who's just
scarier.
Hiding
who's
in the
stalking
dark.
you. Yeah.
It's
hiding
so
in
much
the-
scarier when you don't
Absolutely.
know what's coming than this just hulking figure out to kill you. And I mean, it's impressive. And another thing that I loved about Hitchcock, and I mentioned in this film, was the way this movie subverted viewer expectations.
Yeah.
And you have directors today, Ryan Johnson, who thinks they know how to subvert expectations, and they don't. That's not how the whole just the shower scene itself, because Janet Leigh at the time was a huge name
star,
actor,
yeah.
and everybody thought she's going to be the main character
Right.
throughout the entire film.
Nope.
They weren't expecting, halfway through the movie for this character to die.
Yeah.
And so everybody was just like, oh my gosh, the main character just died. What's going on?
What do we do? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And not to mention that this is also the film that started. It was technically a trend, but then became the de facto across all of movie theaters, which was it stopped the just continual show times. This is the one where you could not go into the theater until the last showing was finished and a new showing was to begin.
Yep.
So this started theater show times,
Yeah. Oh,
which is
wow.
pretty impressive.
In the
Didn't know that
past,
either.
you just bought a ticket to a movie and you
Yeah.
could go whenever. And if you came in the middle of the movie, you could sit through it till the end and then watch
it,
the
yeah,
beginning.
watch it all over,
Yeah.
and you could stay there all day if
But
you wanted
Hitchcock
to.
didn't
Yeah.
want that because he didn't want the twist spoiled. Like he didn't want
yeah.
you coming in halfway through and seeing what happens and then be like, oh, well, now I know the twist.
Right, or that it's not a great movie because, well, this just spoiled it for me, when
Yeah.
really you'd come in the halfway through and you wouldn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, again, it speaks to what we've talked about before, and I think the more modern day kind of esque version in a smaller way is like with Nolan and shooting on film. And you have these true artists, I consider them, who are actually out there trying to preserve the classic traditions of film, but also trying to revolutionize it and see it for what it
James
really
Cameron?
can be.
Oh yeah.
God, I hate you.
Revolutionary.
Revolutionizing everything.
I mean, it's funny, you're trying to scare me on Halloween. You're doing it. But no, absolutely 4 out of 4 stars for Psycho. If you've not seen this film, for one, we just spoiled a lot of it.
Well, shame on you
Yeah,
for not
yeah.
having
I
seen
know.
it.
And make sure you find the right one because
Oh, yeah, don't do the remake.
Yeah, the
that-
remake's terrible.
Yeah, well, Anne Heche and Vince Vaughn.
Yeah,
Vince Vaughn. Yeah.
It's like, what the hell? What were
Yeah.
they thinking?
First of all, who thought they could remake Psycho anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think,
The same people that thought they could remake Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
or Rebecca, which is
Oh, yeah,
what
we
we're
haven't got
finding
to
out
that one.
about, we're finding with the reviews, the early reviews that, that
I actually
was
think
not a very
Rebecca's
good remake.
actually a Hitchcock film that I think could maybe be done better, but apparently not by Netflix.
Well, that's the weird thing. It's a Best Picture winner, and we actually thought this is not the best Hitchcock there is.
It's not.
So why
I
would
mean,
they
it was
pick
fine. I didn't hate it,
Yeah.
but it was not Hitchcock's
Yeah.
anywhere
Greatest.
close to many of his greatest.
But you know what? That's going to do it for our movie reviews
Huh.
this week and for Halloween. Yes, that's right. We're just returning to normal reviews next week. But that's okay. We're going to figure out what that is, hopefully, before the end of the show. If not,
Yeah.
we'll tell you what our review is going to be the same time we tell you what we're going to do next week.
That's
okay?
right.
We don't know nothing this week.
Nothing.
The election just it threw us all off.
But we
Yeah.
do have plenty of headlines to cover, so let's roll that beautiful headline open and get right to it.
Like we all look like Night at the Roxbury when that's
Night at-
going on.
I like it.
Dun, 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 dun.
I like watching us.
Yeah.
We're all bobbing around.
We're all bobbing.
Yeah.
What is love?
Baby, don't hurt me.
It looked like, what was his name?
No more.
Chris. I forget his name. What's his name? Chris
Wallace.
No, the one oh gosh. See,
Henson.
and I was gonna make a
Chris
political
Henson.
joke because I was thinking of what his actual name is, and I was gonna say him and Amy McGrath at the bar, like bobbing their head.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I hate you. I hate you. Y'all could have laughed at that. It was a bomb.
Because I don't know who you're talking about right now.
No.
Sean's-
I don't know the guy's name either.
Yeah.
Chris Kattan.
Oh,
was
yeah,
it.
Chris
Kattan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see?
Will Ferrell. Yeah.
And they,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Chris
I
Kattan.
know I
Yeah.
know my crap. Okay.
Well, I didn't know who you were talking about
All right, well,
until you said Catan.
I was if I would have said Chris Kattan and Amy McGrath, then you would have got it.
Yeah.
'Cause you would have known I was referencing Will Ferrell.
Yeah, I
Right,
would have gotten
right.
it, but you didn't say Chris Catan.
I didn't.
You
I
ruined
messed
it.
it up.
Ruined.
That's the problem.
What's in the headlines this
I
week?
shouldn't have went with it because of the
Yeah.
punchline.
Let's don't rue the rest of the show.
All right, so our first headline right off the top of the bat is the fact that Apple was going to spend an amazing crap ton of money to have exclusive rights, not indefinitely, but just for a year with MGM's latest Bond film, No Time to Die.
I mean, that would be huge for them.
Oh,
I mean, the amount of money they wanted to spend on it
Yeah.
was ridiculous, but it would be.
But it would be. It
the
would be
most
an
massive thing
absolute,
they have.
Oh yeah, no doubt. It would be a reason for people to buy a subscription to Apple
I
TV
mean,
Plus.
you know-
If not to mention the freaking
Or at
people who get a
least
free year
a
of
reason
it.
to start a free trial.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
like-
Yeah, true.
It's like you have No Time to Die way up here, and then way below the table is Greyhound.
True.
Oh, yeah.
No, very true. Very true. But the fact is that Apple decided to not. Now, granted, it wasn't just Apple. It was also Apple and Netflix were kind of sparring, and some other streaming services.
They were all fighting over it.
But Apple decided, no, a little bit too much. We're not gonna buy it for that much.
Yeah.
MGM was looking upwards of $500 to $600 million
Yeah.
for the rights to this film.
Which is
And again,
that's-
not exclusive
which is-
all-time rights.
Which is
but
more
just
than the
for-
film's budget. So.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Oh,
yeah, but think about it. I remember as the numbers were being tossed around, or the only hint that we had was a Hollywood Reporter article, and it was a guy saying it was somebody who was tweeting out saying the numbers I'm hearing being tossed around are ridiculous. And I
Yeah.
told my brother and sister-in-law at the time, I was like, it has to be at least $400 million. And I'm like, because in my mind, I'm sitting here thinking, you got to think production, advertising rights.
Yeah.
You got to think about the gross of the film.
They're,
I'm like,
they're
this is
basically looking to make their money back by selling it to a streaming service.
well, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, you're guaranteed to make if this movie hit theaters and was at the time released to theaters without COVID, no doubt this would have been $1 billion+ film worldwide.
Yeah.
No doubt. So you're telling me that they're not going to sell it for
yeah.
you know a hefty price
Heck yeah.
specifically because of the Bond name? And think about it. If Apple would have capitalized on this, would we have seen a surge in Apple TV Plus subscriptions?
Well, heck, now that they are on
It's
all
the
platforms,
only
you
thing
might
that
have.
would be worth watching on there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's
think
really nothing
people
other
would-
than a couple, maybe 2 shows that are worth.
I think they
mentioning,
would have
like-
got an initial surge of people like maybe subscribing for a month, just
Yeah,
to watch
to
the
watch it,
movie.
yeah.
And then after they'd seen
They
the movie,
cancel.
they cancel the
Yeah,
subscription because
absolutely.
what else
I
is there to
would.
watch?
Yeah.
I would pay, what is it, like $6 for Apple TV Plus?
That's only
Just to watch
is
it.
That's
is
cheaper than a movie.
$4.99 or $5.99.
$4.99.
Is it
It's $5?
$5? I thought
Yeah.
it was $5.99. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's $5. Well, that's half the price of a movie
Yeah.
ticket.
Yep.
Why not buy Apple TV Plus for a month
Yep.
just to watch
Well,
Bond?
and not to mention, I mean, I got my free year of Apple TV Plus when I got a new iPhone last year.
Mhm.
They're doing the same thing with new iPhones this year.
Yep.
Oh, good.
Mine just got extended.
Yep.
In terms of being, or now giving me a free, gosh, I can't speak, a free subscription of Apple TV Plus through February. So with that being the case, I mean, yeah, I would be able to watch it, enjoy it, and not have to worry about paying a subscription or even cancel my subscription if there was nothing else.
I almost
on the
wonder if they
service.
were going to do something like Disney did where they actually sell it separately from their service. You got to have the service, but then you also got to pay $30 to watch it.
I think they
Oh,
would if they had,
probably could have.
if they had a higher leg up, but I think because they don't have anything else to offer, like Disney Plus still has
Yeah, that's
all
true.
kinds of
Yeah.
stuff. I don't think Apple would have been able to get
Well,
away
remember,
with it
Apple
as easily.
has $6 billion set aside each year. They confirmed they set
Yeah.
aside $6 billion for content.
Yeah.
Would they have been willing to throw away like
Cash.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
you're
and
talking about Apple. They're sitting on $70 billion in cash.
yeah,
Yeah.
this would have been chump change.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I just don't understand the six. This the article I was just reading said that they
600.
even 800 was thrown around, and I'm just like, why not? I mean, Apple's got it to throw around. If you want someone to join your service, why not grab the
But
biggest
see,
movie
True,
of
but
the
I don't think
year?
they also want to set a precedent for if they pay close to $1 billion for one movie, they're not going to want to be willing to throw that out every time. A
Not
major
every
movie
time,
comes,
but-
so.
No, but I mean,
at a time when everyone else is dying
Yeah.
from COVID.
Yep. Not to
Why
mention
not?
that Bond is one of those. Not only is it a huge property, this is the last Daniel Craig Bond.
Yeah,
That's true.
Who's not
Yeah.
going to want to see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think where Apple might have been kind of scared away from paying that big price tag was simply, for one, no guarantee in subscriptions sticking around, and two, if they only had the authorization for a year
Yeah.
before they could sell the rights to someone else for more money, I think Apple would have said, "We'll pay $800, but we have to have it all the time."
Yeah, that's
And
what I was. That's surprised. What surprised me, I was thinking that 600, 800 million.
For
You
all
own the property.
exclusive rights.
You own that property.
Yeah.
and
Well,
they can sell
the
it to others
distribution
later.
rights,
Yeah.
yeah.
they get it for a year. Then they can sell it to Netflix for God knows how much money for a couple
Well,
of
and,
months. or
well, no
whatever.
streaming service indefinitely owns the rights to a film unless they made it themselves. Because I mean, they do that. But granted, it is longer than a year normally.
Well, that's the thing, though. But Netflix would have done that if Netflix, I think, would have been was in the same talking, and same point as Apple. If they were in the same arena, they were probably trying to do the same exact thing.
Yeah.
We're going to get this, and we want it exclusively on our platform. And the only place you can watch the Bond film is on Netflix.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I don't think
But
Netflix could have
for
gone up
a
as
year,
high
no.
as Apple because they're hemorrhaging money anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that for a year.
No.
Normally they have a couple year contracts, but every film that is on Netflix or any other streaming service that was made by a different production company is a timed thing. They don't have it indefinitely.
Yes, but I think what they were talking about and why I think ultimately the deals fell through for Apple and Netflix was, again, they wanted to pay the money and get the exclusive rights of saying, we are now the distributor.
Yeah.
Just like Netflix, what they do is they go to these film festivals,
Yeah.
they buy up these films that
Well,
are
yeah, no,
produced,
I get
but
that.
they're now Netflix originals.
Exactly,
And
but
they
I
wanted
don't-
this to be a
the
Netflix
Apple
original.
original.
Yeah,
film,
and
yeah.
I get that, but I don't think the studio would obviously want that because
No.
they're going to. Sony's going to want to be able to put that wherever. They're not
Well,
going to.
and that's kinda
stuck with one specific because it's Bond. They always keep all the Bonds. I mean, they sell the big sets.
Yep.
When they do put them on streaming services, most of them go to the same streaming service. So they don't want all these Bond films like Apple has this one, but Netflix has these.
And I was going to say,
they don't want to split
you just
it like
brought
that.
up a great point, because that was the other criteria that the article brought up was, does this really just tell us the story about how MGM is doing? Because really, if this is the one property they depend on so much, they're obviously not willing to give their last Daniel Craig film to Bond. For instance, if they come out with a huge collector's edition with all the Bond films up to date,
Well, MGM's
and they don't have
bankrupt
rights to
more
that.
than once.
Yeah,
they've gone bankrupt more than once.
just
so.
like AMC's about to.
Well,
you
that's
know?
true. Yeah.
But that's the question. I mean, is this really just a story about how MGM is just bleeding money? Like, really? Because, granted, we've talked about how bad it is for the theaters. We know that ultimately this year is troublesome for the theater market and theater chains. But is this also what is to come if movies either continue getting pushed back or these heavy hitters that studios are ultimately depending on? I mean, think about Disney. Disney's put its heavy hitters on Disney+. They've basically shirked the entire theater chain industry just to say, we got a streaming service. We got millions of subscribers. We'll just put it on there.
Yeah.
Freaking nobody else has that.
Yep.
No, I mean, MGM doesn't have their own streaming service, and they sure as hell can't put, oh yeah, we just have all Bond all the time.
All
Like, come
Bond
on.
all the time.
You know?
Because MGM tends to team up with either Sony or Warner Brothers a lot. They
For distribution and production, I guess.
for both, because they don't have the money to do it. Like when they were going bankrupt, like I think second time, that's when Sony was handling the Bond films. The Casino Royale was released by Sony and MGM because MGM didn't have the money.
Yeah.
The Hobbit films were a collaboration between Warner Brothers and MGM because MGM owned the rights. But they couldn't do really nothing with it, and Warner Brothers is like, well, we already made Lord of the Rings, and we want that, so let's come to an agreement, because MGM is hemorrhaging money. They have been for years. It's just.
I remember when they were remaking Red Dawn, and MGM was like they put that movie on hold for like 4 years because they couldn't afford to finish filming it.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible movie.
Yeah, it is
like
awful.
It's absolutely terrible. We could have made that in your backyard. and I'm just like, it took them 4 years to make that movie because they couldn't budget for it.
Yeah.
And so I agree. They've gone under a couple of times, and it's kind of like, I just don't see how they could afford to not sell a property like that and stay afloat in these times.
I was going to say that's kind of more the scary part is, are they going to have to come down on the price as the time goes on if they can't wait? Because granted, this all comes after the fact that they already, moved the date back.
Yeah.
They already had it scheduled for April of next year. So the question is if it was already planned for a new release date next year when theaters are hopefully back open and a lot I have full audiences back in them. The real question is this also who initiated this? Did MGM initiate this, or did they just entertain people who were shopping for it, who were just kind of like, hey, we'd be interested in having that movie if you're willing to sell it, and MGM's like, okay. Yeah. Or was it like, hey, y'all want the Bond film? Like, we kind of need money.
Yeah.
We can't make it till April.
Well, I
don't think it's like that dire, but it is one of those. It would be interesting if we get to April, this mess is not over, and then they got to push it back again, and it gets to the point where they're like, we can't keep payroll because this movie hasn't released, and we've not made our money back on it, and this is the only property that we know is guaranteed to make us a crap ton of money.
But it ain't guaranteed to make any money in theaters. I mean, even if they
True.
go back to 80% capacity and people actually show up, it's still not going to make what it could make.
That's I think the point as far as like
that's
who
why they're
initiated
pushing
what,
it back.
And that's that's what I'm saying. I think that'll be kind of what tells like who is more desperate. Like, did Apple approach MGM or did MGM approach them? Because if we get several months into 2021 and theaters still aren't reopening and MGM's bleeding money, and they're like, okay, well, maybe 600 was too high. Y'all want to give us a different, like, if they end up selling at a lower cost, I think it'd be pretty clear that it's like, okay, MGM needed the money more than Apple or Netflix were wanting that film.
No, I agree. I think time will tell.
Is it hype? We've tossed around the
True.
idea of AMC like talking about going bankrupt just to rebuild, just to get attention. I mean, what better way to get attention towards your film than to say Apple's considering paying $600 million for a $250 or $250 million film. I don't know how much it cost. I'm just saying there's no way it's anywhere close.
That's a decent average. Yeah.
I would say $200 to $250, for that kind of film, and it's like,
well, and that's not even
what kind of hype is that going to be?
Yeah, the marketing itself. I mean, that's something that they're going to continue to be drowning in the marketing hole. Because, they're not promoting it with new trailers or anything. But once the movie comes back to a month out, you're going to have to drum up excitement again to go see Bond. You're going to have to see TV spots. You're going to have to see things start back up.
All of these production companies is that they don't want people to forget about their films. I mean, you don't see as much advertisement, but you still see things about Black Widow, No Time to Die, Top Gun. I mean, some of the major Wonder Woman, they still...
The ones that diehard fans are following.
They are still doing some advertisement, and it's like that's money they have to spend every time to try to push out something new so people don't forget, oh, yeah, that movie's going to come out one day.
Someday.
Well, I'll tell you this. If I had $500 million...
You'd buy Bond?
I'd buy Bond. I'd buy it for a year, and I would give people a ticket price that they have to come over to my house and watch, and I'd have a line out my door, I'm telling you. Like, the only place you can see it is at this one house in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Come on down.
On a Samsung TV.
That's right.
Not a Sony TV. I don't think you'd get that.
Yeah. You know what? Screw them. They don't get to choose that. I just paid $500 million,
That's
okay?
True.
I can watch it on whatever I will watch.
That's true. That's got to be one hell of a movie to be worth that much money.
I know. But I do think it's going to prove that. I mean, I think you're right, though, Sean. I think the real gamble is going to be that, once you could say once theaters are back to normal, but nobody knows when that's going to happen. Nobody. But we know this IP is extremely precious, and we know that it has the potential that if theaters were at full capacity, it would easily make $1 billion worldwide. Easily. And that's the other thing that you have to take into consideration. We're about to move on, but this is also one of those instances where Tenant didn't do well across the board.
Overseas, yeah.
It's an original IP. It does have Nolan's name attached to it, but it was still the American markets that put those on the map, and then it spread like wildfire everywhere else. This is a film that if it doesn't do well here because people are too afraid to go back, even with 80% capacity, it's going to do well where all the other markets are open. And you got to think about Europe, who just got screwed over by Disney. They're clamoring to have a film like this. So let's hope that 2021 has a better, bigger, and brighter future for the movie theaters, and AMC doesn't go bankrupt.
Yep.
Let's hope.
I mean, it starts next week, so we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll find out then.
So,
I think we're ready for our Vices segment.
I hope so.
It's not our Vices segment.
No.
It's our multimedia segment. Let's get to it.
Multimedia.
multimedia.
Multimedia. That's right. Multimedia, guys.
I have not heard.
You haven't heard? Well, y'all have heard about the topic, and y'all are going to lambaste me for it. Go ahead. Get it out there. Just tell me it doesn't make any sense.
I'm waiting for you to announce what the topic is.
All right. I'll tell y'all. I totally pulled this one out of my butt. And I'll tell you right now, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for multimedia. But the topic...
Make it make sense, though.
I hope we will. If not, we'll just talk about scrambled videos again. Scrambled porn.
Yeah.
Look,
according to Neil, it's the greatest thing he's heard on
we
the show.
ain't got to talk about scrambled porn anymore. We've already talked about hot nut and ghost nut, and now we have
we're sharing evenly.
We're slowly pushing our podcast into a more adult theme. And
True. Let's backstep.
We might,
yeah.
Let's walk.
It's
that
Halloween. Back. Let's. It's for the kids.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So the topic I came up with was, what is your favorite Halloween event? I was going to do movie, because this is a movie podcast, obviously.
Right.
We've done our favorite Halloween horror films.
Yeah.
Which I don't even know if you still have that list, Keith.
I'm somewhere buried in
that
something.
Was, Sean, it was just before you were on our show. This was like first year we did this podcast.
Yeah.
We ranked like top 10 horror films. But, so I thought that was a little too limited. So I thought, well, I'll open it up to event to make it still multimedia-esque, but also widen it.
Just
on a
mine
variety of
mine will
topics,
be
you know.
multimedia-esque.
Okay,
If you didn't
good,
go there,
good.
I'll go there.
Perfect.
Because mine does have to do with movies, and mine is the long festivals of movies that show up around Halloween.
Yeah.
Cool.
I
see?
love
All right.
the Friday the 13th, the Nightmare on Elm Street, back to back on certain television stations. I love that stuff. I like to
Yes.
watch them all back to back. And so around this time of year, that is when those show up on TNT and all these other channels that you can watch all of those great horror films, the Halloween films. You can watch them all one after the other. So I like the fear fests and all that kind of
Yes,
stuff.
I love those.
I marathon
13 days of
Not so
Halloween.
much
Yes.
Friday the
Yeah.
13th, but I do marathon The Nightmare on Elm
Oh,
Street,
yeah.
the Halloween series, and occasionally Scream because I do like
Scream
I
is
mean,
good.
even like
Yeah.
I know they're stupid movies, but I love watching them. But like, did y'all ever watch Ginger Snaps? Did y'all ever watch
No,
those
I've never
movies?
seen that.
Like those are stupid werewolf movies, like teenage girls turning into werewolves and stuff. But it's like
I should've
there's
watched
so
those.
many of those
Well,
kind of movies.
I
that
do
I just
like
like watching this stuff.
campy B horror
Yeah.
movies. There's a lot,
Sleepaway Camp.
Sleepaway Camp,
Yes,
yes,
God.
is great. Pumpkinhead is
Yes,
terrible, great.
yeah,
but
yeah.
Hellraiser.
Jeepers Creepers.
Jeepers Creepers is terrible and great.
Yes. I honestly, I like to me, I like the underrated kind of smaller classic horror films. Like, I mean, Silver Bullet is a
That's a good
classic
one.
for me. I do love, it's not smaller. It got huge, became a cult classic over the years, but A Nightmare, or not A Nightmare, A Werewolf in London.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's,
and I
that's
mean, just
considered a classic.
Oh yeah. And so it's just like I love watching those films that are pretty simple on the surface, but when you talk about just they're iconic and they're I mean, to me, I honestly another thing that I've kind of recently started to do and which is weird. I should have probably done this as a kid, but I will try to play like a horror game around Halloween.
Okay.
Because like I know like all the Resident Evils
Resident
come
Evil,
out,
yeah.
in like January or February,
Yep.
and I actually will get them then, but wait until like October to play them.
Yeah.
And I just enjoy playing those like during the season because
Yep.
it get you in the mood.
It's fun. That's
Yeah.
fun.
Keith, what about you?
I mean, I mostly like marathoning horror films. I love not multimedia related, but I mean, one of my favorite parts of Halloween are haunted houses.
Yes.
I always
Yes.
love to go to, which I didn't go this year because
COVID.
all the good ones are. I mean, there's some that are open, but the ones that are open are the ones I don't care for.
Yeah.
So
It's like it's not fun when they're all wearing masks.
I was gonna say, not the
I don't
right
wanna
kind of
see
mask.
Freddy
Right.
Krueger with a mask on.
right. So yeah, I haven't gone to one this year. My favorite is probably Field of Screams around Louisville, and
Yeah.
that one was closed.
Used to be
which-
Nightmare Forest.
I love
Well, Nightmare
Forest.
still
Do
exists.
they still do that?
Yeah,
in Otter
yeah.
Creek?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Do they really?
Yeah,
Man,
there
that
was
used to be the bomb.
That one
Yeah,
was
that one's
open this
awesome.
year, but I never cared for that one. I didn't think it was as scary as Field of Screams. So
Industrial
like
Nightmare was always the scariest.
Industrial
one to me.
Nightmare is
See,
really
but
good.
then one thing I liked was and it's you have to find them off the beaten path, but some of them do like haunted corn mazes.
Yeah.
And you like they still lead you through like a maze, but like some of them will have like old broken down buses in the
Yeah,
middle.
well,
of
Field of
them.
Screams does.
Yeah, I love that crap.
Field of Screams
man.
has all that stuff in the middle of the cornfield. Then you get to the end and you go through the barn, and then after you get
See,
through
I
the
love
barn,
that.
they have this wooded thing now. I mean, Field of Screams is massive now. I mean, it's
I think
great.
I
Where is
went
that?
one year with you.
It's by Otter Creek. It's the corn maze, and
Okay.
it's because you could like literally if you go right towards Field of Screams, or you could go like left towards Nightmare Forest.
Okay.
Well, there's also
Yeah.
like Industrial Nightmare was one.
Yeah.
That's more of like inside a haunted house, which
Yep.
those aren't bad. I just some of those are like you have to go in certain group sizes
Well, then they
because
have
the hallways.
Baxter Morgue.
Yeah,
that's
but-
always
yep,
one.
that one's a good one. That is a good one. But like some of them, it's like when you got to go in a smaller group. I don't mind those, but you have to wait a really long time. It's like a ride at a theme park.
Yeah.
The Field of Screams and stuff, when they let like massive groups go, it's kind of nice because you kind of string out anyway, and
Yeah.
you're not all clumped
Yeah.
together. But I love it.
Yep, love horror. Like I mean, I love decorating my house, which you've seen. I showed on the show actually. I think was it last week?
Yeah,
or the
last
before?
week. Yeah.
So I mean, I love the holidays in general, and definitely when I can actually enjoy them. This is one of the first years where I felt like I have definitely gotten my fill of
Halloween, yeah.
because I wasn't constantly working.
Yeah, and I think honestly that is it's just taking time to enjoy it. And truth be told, we always do these kind of segments on every other like mainly for Christmas, and of course we all love Christmas here. But I was like, we haven't really done it for Halloween, so let's do it for Halloween.
Well, we did it.
Well, we did it, and that's
it
gonna do
was
it for this evil maniacal laugh. Sean, one more time.
That was my that was Kamala Harris.
Oh.
That was her laugh.
See, I just did it too. Did you hear it?
Yeah.
All right, guys. I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Red Moon Podcast. But you know what you all could do out there?
What can they do?
You could send us a friendly like on our social pages.
Oh.
They're right there at the bottom of the screen. Yeah, that's right.
People's been doing that lately.
I was going to say, getting
They
new
have.
views,
Jacob,
new likes.
thank you.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yes.
And sending us messages on Facebook with articles attached. That's fantastic.
We need more interaction. Come on, people.
We do. And there's another
We're
way they could
lonely.
interact, Keith.
Well, how is that?
I don't know. Do you know?
Straight to the heart.
I mean, are you suggesting that they might possibly email us?
Huh. Funny. You say that because it's right at the bottom of the screen.
This screen right here?
No, the other one, the wide shot.
He's like,
I got you.
Yep.
Trick or treat. Yes, that's right. RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com. Now it's at the bottom of your screen, Sean.
Don't trust him. Don't trust him.
Are you sure?
It's a lie.
This
It
way?
is. That's it.
It's
a lie.
Podcast at redmoonproductions.com.
You were way off, but that's
fine.
You were
That's
still on
okay.
the screen. That's right. RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com. So next week, we will be here.
We'll be here
Wednesday or Thursday.
someday with
Follow
some
us,
movie.
Follow
That's
us on
right.
social media to find out what day
It's a mystery show.
and what movie. That's right.
Here's the thing. We're really just waiting to see if the world ends on Tuesday. And if it doesn't, we'll let you know what's going on with the Red Moon Podcast.
Because even if the
True.
world ends, guess what? You can count on us to be here. We'll guide you through the end of the world. That's right. That's what we do every week on the Red Moon Podcast. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
and
Keith Cheatham.
so until next time, we'll see you at the end of the world.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.